Today's episode comes to you in partnership with RotaCloud, the people management platform for shift-based teams. RotaCloud lets managers create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage annual leave, all from a single web-based app. It also makes work simple for your team, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, straight from their phones. Try RotaCloud's time-saving tools today by heading to rotacloud.com/Phil. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is world-class chocolatier Stephen Trigg, founder of Loudon Chocolate. Coming up on today's show, Stephen makes his pitch on how to save the world.
Just get chocolate into people's mouths.
Phil threatens to jack it all in.
I'm going to retire right now.
And Stephen highlights some of the pinch-yourself moments you can find yourself in.
I don't know, I was going to give a speech in front of Tony Blair, who sat like literally 10 feet from me, in front of me, in a room full of people.
All that and so much more as we chat through Stephen's wonderful journey so far. Stephen is a guy at the top of his game, and he and his wife have created a wonderful business, deeply respected throughout UK hospitality. He's also one of the nicest humans you will ever meet. His story has so much to offer, both from a personal journey perspective and with so many business lessons for entrepreneurs as well. Not only that, but his story is a demonstration that it really does not matter when you find your passion. Spectacular things are always possible when things align. A quick reminder to you all to hit that subscribe button and give us a review. It really does make a huge difference. Enjoy. And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Stephen Trigg. Hello, Stephen.
Hi, Phil. Thanks very much for having me on.
You're very, very welcome. How are you today?
Yeah, pretty good. Nice relaxed day. Just finished some production. The team have just taken over, so I can be with you.
Ah, bless you. Well, very good. Is that the engine room you're in? Is this where all the magic happens planning-wise?
Planning-wise, yeah. As you can see, the big calendar behind me, and so this is my office in our production unit. We've got about 3,000 square feet. About half of that is kitchen space, and we've got some warehouse storage. Staff have got a changing room and facilities for their own kitchen as well. So yeah.
Great stuff. Well, I mean, for the uninitiated out there, just tell the world who you are and what you do.
So my name is Stephen Trigg. I am the co-founder and owner of Loudon Chocolate. We are an artisan chocolate producer based in the UK, founded in 2008 by me and my wife, with a passion for just wanting to create chocolate that we personally wanted to eat. And over the years, it has taken us on this amazing journey that we have two sides to the business, which is our front online shop that we sell directly our brand, and then we sell into other retailers that sell our brand. But then we also support a massive part of our business is hospitality. So we do hotels, restaurants, British Airways first class, and Cunard cruise ships.
Wow. Well, that's a bit of a cross-section of stuff.
Yeah, and it wasn't by design, Phil. It was a snowball effect, shall we say, in a sense that we literally started making chocolate at home for ourselves to eat, and
no intention for business at that point. Or
no,
was it...
at initial point, no. What happened? So I have a previous career as an IT consultant, and my wife, we'd recently moved over from Singapore to Leeds in Yorkshire. Originally, I'm from the northeast of England, and Leeds is quite cosmopolitan, and I'd had a lot of work in and around the area. And I said, whatever it is, we'll find you, in terms of work or whatever you wanted to do, just take your time, get settled in the country. And about a couple of years in, we went to a little chocolate shop in the north of England, and it was one of those ones you go in, they've got all the little bonbons out on display, and you can pick and choose. Yeah. And it's such a great shopping experience. And we spent £50, and when we got home and started eating it, we were like, it was such a letdown. We were like, oh my, what is...
Oh, right. I was going to ask you, what was the shop? Was it the inspiration?
Yeah, well, that's why I didn't divulge the name, but it was like they'd imported Belgian truffles, and it was just flavouring and sugar, and it was not what we personally enjoy. I mean, we're both foodies. We both love good food, and wherever we'll go out of our way to go to a nice restaurant, And so we were at home, and my wife decided, she was just going to start making truffles. And that's where it started, really, where it was born. And it wasn't until about a year in that we'd made everything for our wedding. So we'd made the macarons, we made our wedding cake, and we made loads of bonbons and chocolates, just out of passion, not out of a professional capacity or professional training.
Yeah.
And everyone at the wedding were like, "Oh, where can we buy these chocolates?" And we're like, "Well, we made them." And they were like, "No, get out of town. You're joking." I was like, "No, we did." And then my wife was like, "Right, we're going to start a business." And about a month later, we must have worked 15, 16 hours making a handful of bonbons to take to the local farmers market in Leeds. And we sold out in 2 hours. And Phil, it was £150, but it felt like £1,000,000, the feeling. It was just incredible.
Well, it's almost kind of, I suppose, like a proof of concept almost.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we complement each other really well. So my wife is completely entrepreneurial, one direction, 100 mile an hour, and I'll run in the other. So
Right.
as much as she was convinced it was, going to be a great business overnight, I would be tugging and pulling the other way until we had the balance right. So yeah, the farmers market was where we could iron out issues without, supplying any customers at that stage. So we could get to learn our trade, we could get to learn to run it as a business. And so that was really important in the early days to we could make mistakes and get away with them or correct them, so to speak. Yeah.
Was that something that you were doing every week, as it were, in terms at that point?
Yeah. Well, so I had a full-time job, and every weekend for as long as I can remember, is a good few years, we were at least one farmer's market, if not two. So the
Right.
Saturday and the Sunday. As things started to progress, I think maybe 6-7 months in, we did a trade show in London, and we had John Lewis and Bond Street were really interested. But I knew at this stage it was way ahead of us. We weren't ready. We didn't have the proper HACCP training. There was so many areas we were missing at that stage that it was a nice, great. There's interest. Let's build a business now. Let's seriously build a business. With that in the back of our mind, we know that people are interested. And like I say, wasn't an overnight thing. It was a snowball effect. As we continued to roll, we grew.
Yeah. So I'm just going to pull this back a little bit, actually, because the passion really just came from purely because you had an experience whereby you thought we could actually do this better.
Well, so we've said if we'd lived in London, this company would never have been born, because there was a couple of chocolate houses in London that we personally enjoyed, and so we could just, we would have been able to pop around the corner and get what we like. But because we lived in Leeds, there was nothing on our doorstep, so we started making chocolate that we personally wanted to eat. And that's been our core ethos that we keep to this day. Every single thing we make, we personally enjoy eating. Otherwise, it doesn't go on the menu, so to speak.
Yeah. And so in your previous life, you were an IT consultant. Was that your career basically up until that point then?
Pretty much, yeah. So I graduated university, and my first job was with the Halifax Bank in Leeds, where I was on their IT banking side of the call center. So not customer facing, but if the branch had a problem, they would ring our call center, and we would fix that problem or point them in the right direction. And then yeah, pretty much a 20-year career in everything from .com startups to Premier League football clubs to law firms. Yeah, for full range of things. I have a wide variety of experience.
Right. And yeah, I suppose interestingly, and I'm kind of just thinking on the fly here, so forgive me if I'm way off the mark, but it feels like that career doesn't really inform this career in any way, shape, or form.
Well, in terms of being in the kitchen, no. But there's a lot of crossover skills. So the risk management side of it, the IT side of it, it gives me a lot of forward thinking and the ability to work with spreadsheets and produce my cash flow, because we're running a business rather than just the chef side of it, which is also I really enjoy, but it gives me a grounding in risk management and managing a business rather than going out and creating something amazing. And so I had the analogy once said to me, look, I can make the best chocolate cake in the world, but can I sell it? Can I run a business off it? So there's a lot more factors to go into it. But so there was a lot of crossover skills between me and my wife in the early days, especially. So she did the chefing side and I did the operations and management side. And then there was a bit of a crossover. But yeah, I know what you're saying. But I think the biggest thing I really enjoy is that I didn't get in my previous career is the camaraderie between your peers. It's just so different that I thoroughly enjoy it. And I often use the analogy to some of my suppliers was like, I wish I discovered this in my 20s, that, being in the kitchen and I would have been so much further on. And they stopped me and they said, no, in your 20s, things are a bit different and you wouldn't have had that same level of passion. So for you to discover it later in life, it's probably accelerated you more than if you'd have been in your 20s where you'd have had other interests during that period of your life as well.
Right.
If that
Interesting.
makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And I kind of get that. Yeah. And I suppose as well, you're coming at this purely from a position of passion, really. I mean, to start with.
Well, absolutely. I remember at thinking times, what am I doing? Getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning, doing invoicing and emails, then going off to do my day job, and then coming home and working till I was physically too tired that I'd had enough, that could be 8 o'clock on the evening, but that could be 2 a.m. in the morning. It just depended how much energy I had. And I'm very lucky in that I had a partner that we would bounce off. So we were like a yin and yang. And if one of us was down, the other one would pick the other up and vice versa. And it'd be very rare that we were both down at the same time. And I do remember once a good few years in that, we'd had, I think we were both on the floor and we'd both had enough and it was physically and very demanding. And then I went home and I turned on Twitter and there was this hugely complimentary tweet by a Michelin star chef that I literally picked myself up. I ran all the way back to the kitchens and I showed my wife that. And I was like, we have to keep going. And that one tweet saved us. And it just gave us that passion to continue. But we've always had that. We're both passionate individuals and
Yeah, well, I think that's a massively important part for success in business, isn't it? You've got to kind of fundamentally believe in what you're doing and yourself in order to, keep getting past the hurdles that will inevitably come up.
Yeah, they do. And it's a roller coaster. It's ups and downs, ups and downs. And the company is 15 years old in about 2 weeks. And I wouldn't change any of it because it's, I've been on the edge and I know how far I can go. And you think you're on the edge. And then when you've been there and you look back, you think, actually, I was nowhere near the edge. But it feels, you create your own narrative in your head and you think, this is terrible. The world is, everything's going wrong. And then when you go through it and you come out the other side and then you look back, you're like, actually, I was nowhere near the edge, but it felt like the edge. And you learn, and that's how you develop character in this industry. It is only through experience, having those experiences, that push you really hard and push you outside your comfort zone. Because if it was all easy, everyone would do it,
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back into the journey. And so you were getting interest from big names like John Lewis. You realised you weren't ready. What did you do then at that? Was that kind of like a moment where you thought, God, we are onto something here?
Yeah, so that gave us a huge excitement, which was like, wow, there's interest. People will actually want to buy what we're making. And so we went home, we sat down and we started looking at what we needed. So at that particular time, we were still in our home kitchen. And I remember our landlady came round once and there was 3 Williams fridges in the apartment. There was a chocolate machine. We were living in the bedroom because we were so scared of any cross-contamination. So basically our apartment was a production kitchen.
Right. I'm sure the landlord loved that.
Well, she was really supportive. I could see the look of a little bit of panic on her face, but it was like, don't worry, everything's under control. We'd taped off the dining room area with clear plastic and had a little air conditioning unit shoved out the patio doors on the 3rd floor of a Leeds apartment, all taped up. So we had a walk-in chiller to save money. But, they were the kind of innovative things I'd done to get us going without spending a fortune. But it was at that point, when John Lewis had said, look, let's talk. And we went to London and saw them and discussed what we needed and looked that we got our first unit not long after that, which was to get out of our kitchen, get into a proper production unit and then build from there, really.
What's the process of that then? Because I suppose it's one thing understanding your business from what you've built to that point in the sense of you've got everything that you need to be at the level that you're at. But when you're taking that step up, how do you learn about what you need specifically from a production purpose? If you're going to basically 10x or 100x your production.
Was in the early days as an IT consultant, I was paid quite handsomely, and so my wife could work full time in the business without us taking any money out of the business, and so I could support what we needed without any banking or investors or anything like that. So we were quite lucky in that sense, and so I was able to get things off the ground. But you're right, as you start to grow, you need working capital, you need investment for certain equipment and machinery. And I'm very lucky that my best friend is an accountant and my personal accountant and business accountant. So he's helped put a financial plan together over the years that has kept us growing, so to speak. And the key is not to grow too fast, because we personally have complete control of the business and we want to have control of the business. We've had investors interested before, and at this stage, it's not for us. We may consider it further down the line, but at the moment, the most important thing for us is having that freedom that we make the decisions, and we live and die by our decisions. So the key is don't grow too fast, because you can put yourself at risk, so to speak.
Yeah, we actually talk about that a lot, just around people's careers generally, as well. There's a lot of people who are very keen to get to where they want to get to as quickly as they can, but in actual fact, it really does pay to slow down and really learn every
absolutely,
element.
absolutely,
Yeah.
Phil. Absolutely. And in terms of my skills in the kitchen, I wanted to learn everything overnight, and it's just not possible. You need that experience of doing things repetitively over and over, and then you start to understand the little nuances of why a certain ingredient isn't responding when it did 3 weeks ago, and little clues like that only comes with experience and time. And if you grow too fast, you could reach a status that an opportunity presents itself and you might be out of your depth, and then your ego is looking to protect that position. And
So what year are we in now then, roughly, from you've taken on your first full production unit, as it were?
So the first full production unit was 2009, so we opened that in 2009.
So from a 2008 start point, that's pretty quick.
Yeah, well, so literally in our apartment for 6 months, we had a unit at the back end of 2008 that we moved into in the January 2009. And then it was literally every farmer's market we could go to. I think my first, we had a few delicatessens taking stuff for retail. My first big break was a Michelin star restaurant in Park Lane, Galvanet Windows, where Andrew Garrett was the head chef at the time, and
Right.
he took our pure truffle. Yeah, and that was our first break into the hospitality industry. Yeah, it was 2009. Yeah, back into 2009.
Yeah. So how did it progress from there then? You're in the unit now. You've got I suppose that's your foundation set.
Yeah, well, this is actually our second unit. So we moved out of the first one in 2013 and moved into this one, which is much larger, give us a lot more space. Pretty much when British Airways came knocking, the previous unit just didn't have the size and space to do what we needed to do. And I got really lucky with this unit, it was a catering company that does big events and weddings that we actually supplied chocolates to. And the head chef called me one day. He's like, "Look, we're looking to move out. I know you're looking to move. This is perfect. Get in touch with the owner." And it was pretty much a ready-made unit for us to move into, just a few tweaks here and there.
Yeah. So this is 2013. You've been in there ever since.
Yeah. So we've been in here ever since. Yeah, it's a perfect space for us. We could reach a capacity within this in a couple of years. So I'm more in the back of my mind planning how do we move to the next unit. So
right, okay, yeah. So there's a couple of things I'm interested in here. From so far in your journey, it doesn't feel, and I'm sure you'll correct me on this, but it doesn't feel like there was any kind of major strategy around, right, we're going to go and get our chocolates in there. We're going to go there. It's almost like these people have heard about you somehow and have come to you.
And you're right on that, which we didn't really have a strategy. I mean, if I could rewind the clock 15 years and what we've achieved in 15 years, I could probably do it in 5, because it was a bit of exactly like there was no particular strategy. It was just, we're going to make chocolates, we're going to sell chocolates, and that was it really. There wasn't like we want to get Selfridges or we want to get Gordon Ramsay, or we want to get, we didn't have that kind of strategy. We just focused on just making great chocolates, and whoever came across them, great. If they enjoyed them, great. And, we do a trade show once a year, and then we'd meet potential buyers and stuff and have a chat with them, and they would taste. And yeah, there wasn't a great big strategy of the particular partners we wanted. It was, if you enjoy it, great. If you don't, no problem.
Yeah. At what point did you kind of make the move over into, I suppose, being more kitchen based as well? Because actually, you and I have not known each other very long, but I think I've only seen you in your chef's blacks.
Yeah, well, so when we moved into this unit in 2013, I did a private chocolate sculpturing class for some chef customers of ours, and I invited them up, and we did that. And I had a colleague here, and I was discussing, early days joining, what would it take to get into the UK pastry team? And he was like, well, being in your position, this year is the very first year they're filming Bake Off Creme de la Creme, which is now known as Bake Off the Professionals. He said, why don't you put yourself forward for that? I was like, yeah, actually, that's a good idea. It was a team event, so I put an application together, collared a couple of friends and who had good experience, and I put my application in. And my wife was like, Stephen, are you crazy? You don't even know how to make a creme anglaise. You're going to go on TV with loads. I was like, yeah, but I do have one thing, which is I have my wife's nickname for me is Monkey See, Monkey Do. You just have to tell me once, and I know how to do it.
Right.
And so I was like, yeah, I've got time. I can practice. I can learn. And so I wasn't afraid to put myself out there because I was confident I could come in and work and practice and kind of things. And so that was like, step out your comfort zone, step into an area that you're out of your depth, but now you've got to go in and work on a weekend. You've got to work on a night. You've got to get these skills under your belt quickly to a competent level that you can go on TV and prove yourself. And that was the first real chefing side of it in terms of the public side. I mean, in the kitchens, I knew how to make bonbons and production with my wife, but that was the first real putting on a chef's jacket and calling myself a chef. Even though probably up until recently, I always say I never felt like a real chef because I never came from this industry, if that makes sense.
Right.
And hence the story we might touch on later, which was my journey for the UK and the World Chocolate Masters. It was a journey of validation to prove to myself I belong with the gentlemen and the competitors and people in this industry.
Yeah, well, we got to know each other a little bit at the HRC event in March.
Yeah.
And you very kindly did I think you did a step-in demonstration for us, didn't you? Because we had a couple of people who couldn't make it.
Yeah, well, I can't, to be honest, I think the times got moved or something, but I'm really relaxed and easygoing, and I'm quite talkative, and I'm comfortable with a camera in front of my face. So it was a no problem kind of thing.
Yeah, the one thing that I remember, I mean, I remember a lot of things from your demonstration, but you did talk about learning quite a lot in your demonstration around the importance that you still place on it, even though that you are now a master of your field. That there's always something new to learn. And I think the thing that you said, which I found really, really interesting, was that even if I go on a course which I know 97% of, that other 3% could be the difference between.
That's the gold dust.
Yeah.
So when you reach a high competent level, and people would say, why on earth are you going on that course? But surely you know it. And I was like, well, I do. I probably know, like you said, 97% of it. But just that 1% or that 2% or something, I was like, I didn't know that. And that's now added to my experience and knowledge. And that's so important when you get to this level kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. What emphasis do you place on evolution as well? Because I would imagine from day one to now, the products that you've evolved in that time are, like night and day.
Yeah, and it is. It's just, it's quite hard to describe because they are night and day, and your experience is night and day, and what you enjoy and your flavors and your palate develops as well over time. And I remember sitting down and tasting at the start 10 different chocolate couvertures, and I couldn't tell the difference between any of them. And I was like, how on earth am I going to be a chef? And then what I did was over a couple of weeks, I'd taste them till I really started to understand them just by myself, and then I could literally blindfold myself at the end of 6 weeks and tell you what each one was. So it's like you could give me one blindfolded, and I knew then. But completely right, from chalk and cheese from the start to where we are now, and the nuances and the subtleties that you now pick up on. Yeah, it's light years away.
Yeah, and I suppose you could also be in a scenario whereby you're out somewhere else in the world and a moment of inspiration comes to you because you're tasting something or you're smelling something or whatever. Do you have that? Are you in the situation where you're still trying to expand your range, still trying to explore and experiment?
Yeah, well, so the last couple of years, most of my time has been taken up by the World Chocolate Masters. So I haven't had a lot of development time for the business, but that's been development time for products for the competition. But you hit the nail on the head there, which was I was in Las Vegas on holiday having a meal, and I had a steak with different things, and they sent out a habanero butter, so chili habanero butter, and somehow through their processing, they'd managed to take the heat out of it and leave the flavor. And in the butter, it was incredible. And I was like, in my head, I was like, how could I get that into a chocolate? Because I think that would just pair so well with X or something. It was just, so I got to chat to the chef and chat to him about how he got the heat out of it to enjoy the flavor behind it. So it was an inspirational, those kind of little moments that you come across in this industry.
Sorry to interrupt, but a quick word to give special mention to our sponsor, Rotocloud, without whom this podcast wouldn't even be possible. With thousands of customers worldwide, Rotocloud is already saving businesses like yours hundreds of hours of staffing-related admin every year. It's been described by its users as everything from a lifesaver to an absolute no-brainer, with one customer even saying that they'd rather stick forks in their eyes than go back to doing their rotas the old-fashioned way. If you're ready to take the pain out of people management, I highly recommend heading over to rotocloud.com/Phil to sign up for your free 30-day trial and see how Rotocloud can benefit your business. Now let's get back to it. Yeah, that's the joy of being an entrepreneur as well, though, right? When, especially as you are your masters of your own destiny at the moment. There's no, private equity firm behind you telling you what to do. If you get an opportunity, you're going to explore it.
Well, exactly, and there's two sides to the coin, which is sometimes you end up going down rabbit holes that are really a lot of fun and take up a lot of time, but don't bring value to the business. So sometimes, they're great and fun to do, and then you step back and think, why on earth did I do that? It's cost me a lot of money and it's cost me a lot of time. But that's the fun part as well. That's the fun part of the industry that I enjoy as well.
Yeah, well, if you're having fun, I mean, that's also important, right?
Like, I can't wait for my alarm clock to go off on a morning so I can get up and come to work. I thoroughly enjoy every moment of what I do every day.
Yeah, brilliant. So you got this unit 2013. You're now making strides forward, I suppose, in terms of the level of production that you can produce. Actually, from a numbers perspective, what does it look like? I mean, do you set targets on the number that you have to produce a day, or is it reference contracts that you have in place, or how does it work?
A little bit of both. So we've got a set range of bonbons that we produce and keep a certain level in stock based on experience. We know what we're going to sell over a period of time. So we're always making, but a lot of stuff is made to order that we're literally making and it's going out the door. We have standing orders with restaurants that we know the chef 2 weeks is planning weeks ahead and telling us this is what I want, and they can always adjust. So if the bookings are down, they might just message me and tell me, look, can you reduce the order by half or cancel next week, and so on. So we've got everything from a restaurant that might take a couple of catering packs up to our peak, which I think the peak day. So we were averaging, so this is pre-COVID, so we would be doing around about 10 to 12,000 bonbons a day in the run-up to Christmas with all of our cooking.
Right.
And the absolute, the most we ever did was a couple of days over that period. We did 18,000 bonbons in a day, but the wheels were coming off the cart. It was right. Sellotaping and keeping, it was a couple of tough days, but averaging around about 10 to 12 and really peaked at 18, but I don't want to push us that hard without a bit more infrastructure again, because it was fun, but it was tough.
Yeah, well, that's the next phase. That's the
next
new
phase,
premises, whenever that comes. Yeah. Brilliant. And then, yeah, so things are starting to, in 2013 beyond, are starting to fit into place. You kind of know your place, you know what you're good at. You've got good supply lines in place and good contracts in place. When did that? Well, let's talk about the World Chocolate Masters, because how did that come about? And talk us through the experience.
Well, so ever since I've had the business, I think it was around about when Ruth Hinks did it for Cocoa Black. I was still working in IT, and I remember sneakily watching it on YouTube while at work, doing like my normal day job. And so I always recall having an interest in it, but I can't recall the initial moment. But I was in awe of it. And the next time we were invited as guests out to the next one, which was a couple of years later, and we got to see it up close and live. And at this stage, I never really had any interest of doing it. I was just in awe of what the competitors could put themselves through. And then about 2017, I started to think, well, maybe after I'd done Bake Off the Creme de la Creme stroke professionals. When I'd done that, I was like, well, what's the next thing? Well, maybe I've got the skills to do the Chocolate Masters. I've got my own units. I've got all of the materials and infrastructure I need. What's to stop me? And so I was doing courses in the back of my mind starting 2017, 18 with ideas that maybe I'd do the next one after 2018, which would be 2021. So I went out to the final when Barry Johnson was the UK competitor 2018, again as a guest of Kakabari, and loved every minute of it. It was great. And then, so when would the next one have been? So it would have been 2020. I put my hat in the ring and made a decision, was like, yeah, I'm going to go for it. And I think there was 6 of us, and then COVID hit and delayed it a year.
Right.
And yeah, so everything moved from there, so to speak.
Yeah. So what does it involve? What do you have to do?
Yeah, so it's an individual event. So you have to win your national selection to then go on and represent your country. Now, the competition is every 3 years. So they have national selections the year before the final, which is held in Paris. So each country will host their selections. So for the UK, initially there were 6 chefs who put their hat in the ring. You're each given a set of parameters and rules around those parameters. So there is different assignments to deliver during the competition at set times. So the UK one was 8.5 hours. And if I recall, I think there was 5 assignments that you've got to deliver at set times during that period of cooking. So I think, you might start at 7 a.m. and the first one is at 11 a.m. and you have to deliver it at that time. And off the top of my head, I'm trying to think. One was a plant-based dessert, or a snack to go, as it was at the time. So there's rules and parameters around what you can and can't do and use. And another one was a bonbon, another one was a chocolate showpiece, and another one was a plated dessert. So yeah. And then you're scored on a variety of things. So from taste to innovation to technique to cleanliness to hygiene. So you can score marks at many different levels. And then they add it all up at the end of the day and announce a winner. And then that person goes on to represent their country in Paris against all the other nations. And I was lucky enough to win in 2021. I represented.
Lucky. You weren't lucky. Can't be lucky to win that for sure.
Well, lucky as an individual. I know what you're saying, but it's I think proud and lucky to have that opportunity, because you can't buy your way into the experience, if that makes sense. You can't say, you can't pay to go on a course and have that experience. So it was lucky that I have that life experience. But then I was pretty much a year to prepare and practice, and you blink and it's gone. It's so fast, and all of a sudden it's upon you. And I think the hardest thing for me personally was the guilt feeling of not doing enough. It's like Friday night, I should stay longer. I was in every single weekend, and this anxiety level builds up. It's like, why are you going home at 8 o'clock? Well, you've just done a full weekend. It's Sunday night. It's 8. You need some time. And this anxiety it's not a nice feeling, because people would say to me, the competition must have been really hard. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. Every minute of it was stressful, and it was hard. but it's not as hard as those 6 months before on a Friday night when it's 8 o'clock and you just want to go home and you've had enough.
Yeah.
And psychologically, you've got to convince yourself to stay.
Yeah. Plus, I'm guessing there's probably a part of your psyche that is just keen to test yourself against effectively the best in the world.
Yeah, and this is where my wife and I differ, which she hates competition. She hates,
right?
And I quite enjoy. I enjoy the adrenaline of it, but I almost enjoy being purely in the moment, if that makes sense. When you're in that zone, it's almost like a yoga meditative state. There's nothing else in your brain apart from just what's in front of you. You're thinking of literally nothing, and it's almost like a laser focus. And it's very hard to create that state, but there's huge pressure, and you push all that to one side and you live in the moment. And it's a nice feeling. And sometimes it doesn't feel like it when you're doing it, but when you've experienced it and you step back, yeah, it's a really nice sense of achievement.
Yeah. Well, plus it's a test, right? I mean, it's supposed to test your skill and capability of in lots of different disciplines.
Yeah. And I think that's what I was alluding to earlier on, which was for me when I entered, because I never felt like a real chef. It was a validation. Could I stand on the world stage and compete with the world's best to validate myself? Because I never had the upbringing. I never worked in the kitchens in my 20s. I'd never had that experience. So for me, it was a whole validation journey. So my whole attitude was, I don't mind if I win. It would be amazing. And I don't care if I lose, as long as I give everything I have and I serve up everything I want to do and I do everything with a smile on my face and I don't complain about a single thing. That was my whole ethos behind it. And it was actually probably 6 weeks out from the competition, early on a Sunday morning, when I was practicing one of the timed assignments by myself, that this feeling just came over that you belong. You belong now. You are a chef. You're here by yourself. You're producing these great tasting products. You're a chef. And that was the moment for me. It wasn't actually there at the competition. It was 6 weeks before on a 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning by myself in the kitchen.
Right. Yeah. Well, who cares when it comes to you, right? As long as you yeah. I'm guessing it must have given you a little kind of lease of life that you're, yeah, I've got this. Like I know my craft. I know what I'm doing. You know.
And it felt exactly like that. It suddenly came over me. And it was like, you belong now. And and so I could call myself a chef to myself. Well, other people would call me it, and I'd say to some of my suppliers who are exec pastry chefs, and they would say, no, but you are a chef. And I think my favorite was actually earlier. It was only this year in Easter, which it's a 3 Michelin star executive pastry chef, and we were doing some stuff for Easter, and he emailed me, can you change it to this? And I replied, yes, chef. And he replied to me, and he was like, in big capitals, no, you are the chef. You are my favorite chocolatier. And I was like, I just cut and paste that out and kept it for myself, because that just...
I'm going to retire. Right.
Yeah. Done, finished.
But that's the joy, right? I think the journey you've been on is quite incredible, because to come from just a place of wanting something to eat that you like yourself, to now be considered, a truly world-class chocolatier, and you're getting the recognition amongst people who are operating at such a high level in the culinary world, that it's, and you've done it in quite a short space of time, really, in the grand scheme of things. Maybe it doesn't feel like that, but
I have to pinch myself, and I never really look at it like that, Phil, because I'm just focused on what we do in the kitchen. And they're all of the nice things that have just fallen into place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think, to give you an analogy, when we first landed the British Airways contract, I was so focused for about 4 months on delivery. So it's like, get everything done, make sure all of the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, deliver for the customer. And so our first order, I drove to London, to Heathrow, to get a feel for the whole process, and delivered it. And then on the drive back, I put out on my social media, my personal. And then one of my friends is a business owner, and he messaged me. He's like, take time to enjoy this moment, Stephen, because what you've just achieved from where you've come is incredible. And it hadn't occurred to me till that moment, that sense of achievement, because I'd been so focused on delivering and making sure the customer was happy. And And I suppose because we've been doing that day in, day out, when you say something like that and reflect on it, it's amazing. But I never see it because I'm too busy just focusing on the day rather
Yeah.
than those niceties. And they are nice. And I do have to pinch myself at time when I get mentioned in the same sentence as industry giants and people I idolize, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, but I suppose that's there's joy in that as well, and keeps you humble, right? That you're not doing it to gain the recognition from these people. It's lovely when it comes along.
Exactly. And I think it's just a sense of inner pride that's all I need. I don't need the social media accolade that, oh, look, I'm doing it with this guy or who I'm with. If that pops out in the social media and that becomes public knowledge, and I get recognition for that's amazing and I enjoy it. But equally, I think I'm a little bit more mature and comfortable and confident enough in myself. It's like, I don't need to go out and tell the world. If the world finds out, great. If they don't, it's no problem. I'm quite happy. I'm just to get on with things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, from your career so far in the world of chocolate, have you got any funny stories you can share with us?
Um, there's all sorts of amazing stories. There's like the journeys and stuff I've been on. I think one that stands out would be, and it's quite a long story, but to give you a synopsis, Phil, I was on the yacht of the Washington Redskins owner, parked outside Tower Bridge. So he's a billionaire. I'm hanging out with him personally. Long story how I actually got there. I'd been doing a talk, and so we were discussing chocolate and business. And Tony Blair and his wife was introduced to us rather than the other way around. So
Right.
he was the guest going onto the boat, and it was like, could I introduce Tony, his wife, to you and Stephen? And so it was just a bizarre moment that I was like, oh, hiya, Tony. I'm a Northeast boy. I'm from your neck of the woods. And he looked at me and he looked around. He went, you've done well for yourself. And I was like, this is not my gaff, but just roll with it.
Yeah. Or you could have said, could say the same of you, Mr.
Yeah,
Blair.
well, yeah, true. So it was a nice experience. And I was due to give a talk to a room full of entrepreneurs about being an entrepreneur. And on the journey on the way down, my wife had asked me, have you prepared a speech? And I was like, no. And she was like, are you mental? You're going to talk to a room full of people and you've not prepared anything. I was like, oh, no, I've got a start, a middle, and an end, and the rest flows. And then before I was about to give my speech, she was like, are you all right? I was like, I didn't know I was going to give a speech in front of Tony Blair. He sat like literally 10 feet from me, in front of me, in a room full of people. I should have prepared a speech. But it was quite a comical moment. My wife videoed the whole thing, and there was chaos in my head, but it came out really well. It came out good. And I had the former Prime Minister sat 10 feet from me listening, so it was good.
And lots of thoughts running through your head around, how did I end up here?
I think I was just so focused. I think at the time, Harrods were doing the canapes, and so my opening was just get chocolate into people's mouths. So I had Harrods walk around with all my canapé, like chocolate bonbons. So that sort of distracted people. But yeah, later on the evening, it was how did I get here? So it was a kind of moment.
Yeah,
which was nice.
Not bad for an IT consultant. I have to
No,
say.
not at all. And like, yeah, the stories and the journey I've been on is incredible, and it's all because of chocolate. It's all because of this industry as well, Phil. That I've had some really exciting opportunities. That I've met amazing people who do what they do, and yeah.
And I think there's a lot of things to love about your journey in the sense that, one, it's kind of, and don't take this the wrong way, I'm not saying you're an old man, you're not at all, but it doesn't really matter at what stage of life you discover it. If it lights your fire and it lights that fire beneath you to do something special, then just jump in it whenever that catches you.
No, absolutely. And so I often describe my wife to people who've not met her as, the cartoon, the Tasmanian Devil, and he's spinning so fast and he's moving from one place to the other. So my wife has this.
Does she know this, by the way?
Oh yeah, she does. She does. I've told her many times. Like she just gives me a look. But it's like she has such passion and she's asking questions and she's so interested in every aspect of life, not just what we do. And I was describing this I was doing an interview for somebody who's producing a book, and I was describing this to her, and he stopped me in mid-conversation. He went, Stephen, he said, "Do you not think there's a bit of the Tasmanian Devil in you?" And I was like, "Oh!" It was a big dawning moment. I was like, "That's why we're together. We're actually the same." I used to think we were the opposites, but I was like, "Christ, we both have this passion for life and this passion and energy for whatever it is we do." So yeah, so I guess there's yin and yang. I'm a Tasmanian Devil as well, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter when you get the realization.
Yeah, but like you're saying, Phil, it's if it gets you out of bed and it gets you interested in life, it doesn't matter what age you discover it, whether that's in your earlier in your career or later in your career. Um, it's passion what gets us through life,
Yeah.
and that excitement and energy to learn things and learn new things and connect with the people in this industry. That's the biggest thing for me, which is I love the network of peers. I love going to shows like HRC and getting to see everyone and chat.
Yeah, that show is a big fat reminder of just how special the industry is, and the so many different people from so many different walks of life within the industry all coming together, everybody welcoming each other to their stand, and you just chat through stuff, and it was just a massive big networking event, really, wasn't it? It's just wonderful.
And I love it. And you're right that people from so many different walks of life and so many different areas of the industry, but we all share the same passion, which is hospitality and food, and creating a great customer experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. I mean, you've probably touched on it already, I think, but what 3 reasons would you give for somebody to join hospitality as a career?
I think that first one, which is the camaraderie, the especially when I've gone and done stages in kitchens, the camaraderie of working with the people and building that friendship and relationship, and you're all working to a common goal, which is to put something on a plate that brings a smile to the customer who's walked through the door. That I absolutely love. And sometimes I don't get to see it as much because of the nature of what I do, but that would be my absolute number one star reason. And I can't remember the other two we were just thinking about, but off the top of my head, that trumps them all for me.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a few through the chat. In any case, the camaraderie is such a wonderful thing. Very under talked about, actually, in terms of the importance of having that in your life.
No, and it like the atmosphere we create here at Loudon, and we have a nice working, relaxed atmosphere, and we talk about life as the day's going on, and it helps with your mental health, and having that every day with different people to see and speak to. It's really important for us.
Yeah, I think that the greatest thing for me, and you're another shining example of this industry, really is that the different roles that exist and are available to do, and the things that you can learn, and all of the different nuances of how they interweave with one another. I think it's just endless.
No, I completely agree that from the front of house and back of house and the support teams around all of that, for people coming into the industry, that there's unlimited opportunities. Whether you want to work in a brigade, in a team, or front of house, customer facing, or the support team, or there's just a great opportunity at so many different areas. I agree with you on that, Phil, for sure.
Yeah. Did you ever think that you'd be doing this? I mean, if you think back 20, 30 years.
So absolutely not. So 20, 30 years, I was like, I do not want to be in the food industry. It petrifies me, the level of responsibility especially today with all the allergens and things. And that used to scare me. I was like, I'm never going to end up in the food industry. So, and here I am. And that's just down, when I look back at that thinking process to where I think now, it's down to making sure I have that knowledge and experience, and I'm doing the things I should be doing, and doing them correctly and professionally, and then all bases are covered.
Yeah.
So, and we're comfortable.
Fantastic. Well, look, I think your journey is amazing. You need to get this in a book one day if you haven't done so already.
No, my wife has told me, so I'm too busy focused on making chocolate, Phil. But
yes, all in good time. All in good time. I'm sure there'll be a lot more stories to come out yet in the over the course of your evolution of the business and what you're doing. If people want to get in touch with you to learn more about your company, what you do, just chew the fat with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, well, I've got social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, so they can contact me through any of them via Loudon Chocolate. And there's our website as well, which is loudonchocolate.com.
Great stuff. Well, look, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story. And I wish you all the very best with the next phase of your business.
Brilliant. No, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, Phil. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Good man. Thanks,
Cheers.
Cheers.
And there we have it. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Stephen and his wife have built a wonderful business. I'd urge you to head to their website and get yourself some of the best chocolates you'll ever taste. We'll be back as usual at 8 PM next Wednesday for another story from hospitality, so until then, thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.